Listen, the truth about getting rich is far colder than the fairy tales you've been sold. Most people think it's about grinding 18 hours a day or waking up at 4 in the morning to jump into an ice bath. That's theater. It's what the masses do to feel productive while they stay broke. Real wealth, the kind that creates a dynasty, is built on the same principles Niccolo Machiavelli taught 500 years ago. It's about virtù, not moral virtue, but the ruthless application of skill and strategy to bend fortune to your will. You don't need more effort. You need better habits. Specifically, tiny, calculated habits that make your success a mathematical certainty rather than a stroke of luck. I've built nearly 13 companies and sold several for enough capital to ensure I never have to take an order from another man again. I'm going to give you the 10 habits that actually moved the needle, but I'm going to give them to you straight, without the sugar coating. The first rule of the game is to keep it simple. Complexity is a trap for the weak-minded. When we're ambitious, our brains try to overcomplicate things to make us feel important. But as Machiavelli noted, the wise man does at once what the fool does at last. Complexity kills momentum. Simplicity builds empires. If you want to dominate a market, you start by solving one clear, agonizing pain point. Look at the Medici family in 15th century Florence. As they didn't start by trying to rule Italy. They focused on one simple, vital problem, the difficulty of moving money across borders. They simplified banking into a system of ledgers and credit. By solving that one pain point better than anyone else, they became the most powerful family in Europe. You need to do the same. Cut out every distraction. When Amazon started, Jeff Bezos didn't try to build the everything store on day one. He sold books, just books. One category, one focus, and until he owned the terrain. You also need to kill the dream of the $1 million payday until you've earned exactly $1. People get blinded by the big numbers and forget the mechanics of power. If you can't make a single dollar of profit by selling a service or a physical product, you have no business talking about scale. I've seen guys spend months on a business plan without ever talking to a customer. That's not business, it's a hobby. Take a simple product, put your own mark on it, and sell it for a $1 profit. Once you prove the mechanism works, you scale it. If you can't explain your strategy to an 8-year-old, you don't have a strategy, you have a liability. When I explain my mission to my son, I don't use corporate jargon. I tell him, you press a button, you get help. You press a button, you give help. He gets it instantly. If the common people can't understand what you're offering, they won't give you their money. The second habit is mastering one thing while the world around you stays distracted. Mastery beats multitasking every single time. There's a reason high performers are obsessed with their killer feature. Look at WhatsApp. They didn't start with status updates, video calls, or payments. They did one thing, messaging that actually worked. They became world-class at one thing, and that's why they were eventually bought for billions. You have to avoid shiny object syndrome. Right now, everyone is chasing AI or the next trend, but the winners are the ones who stay focused on the problem they set out to solve. Machiavelli warned that he who seeks to do everything ends up doing nothing. Say no to everything that doesn't advance your primary objective. Create a repeatable system that works while you sleep before you even think about adding a second product. Measure your progress by the results you deliver, not by how busy you feel. Being busy is often just a way of hiding from the high-stakes work that actually builds wealth. If you're ready to stop playing small and start building something that actually matters, hit that subscribe button right now. Join a growing community of men who are done with the average life and are ready to master the mechanics of power and wealth. We're building a tribe here, and your growth is the priority. Before we move on to how you can stop being the bottleneck in your own life, I want you to lock this first lesson in. Comment the word simplicity below to show you understand that the path to the top isn't through doing more, but through doing the right things better than anyone else. But here's the problem. Most people, even when they start to see success, end up sabotaging themselves because they can't let go of the reins. They become the very thing that stops their empire from growing. If you want to move from being a self-employed laborer to a true master of industry, you must learn the most difficult lesson of all. You are probably the biggest threat to your own success. I've seen this time and again in the 13 companies I've built. In the early days, I was the bottleneck. I thought that by doing everything myself, I was ensuring quality. In reality, I was just ensuring that the business could never grow larger than my own 2 hands. Machiavelli taught that a prince who tries to handle every minor detail of his state will eventually be overwhelmed by the sheer weight of his responsibilities. You have to build systems that function without your constant interference. If the business lives and dies by your daily actions, you don't own a business. You own a high-stress job that you can't quit. Consider the Venetian arsenal of the 15th century. At its peak, it was the greatest industrial complex in the world, capable of churning out a fully armed galley in a single day. They didn't achieve this through the genius of a single shipbuilder working 18 hours a day. They achieved it through a revolutionary system of standardized parts and a rigid assembly line. They documented every process so that any skilled worker could step in and perform their role. You need to do the same. Use tools like Notion or Loom to record exactly how you do what you do. Stop treating your work like a dark art that only you can perform. If it's a secret, it's a shackle. You need to delegate tasks where you aren't the undisputed expert. I'm terrible at organization and accounting, so I hired professionals who live for those details. It costs capital, yes, but it buys you the only resource that matters. Time to think strategically. Trust is a tool of power. If I don't trust the person editing this video to do their job, I end up micromanaging them, which slows down the entire machine. Freedom builds responsibility. When my team knows that their work is going out to millions of people without my final blessing on every frame, they step up. They take ownership because the weight of the result is on their shoulders, not mine. Every week, you should ask yourself, what am I holding up? Whatever the answer is, find a way to hand it off. Don't let your ego convince you that your magic touch is required for every email or social media post. See, that kind of thinking is for small-time players. True elites build machines that run better when they are out of the room. Once your machine is built, you must feed it, and the only fuel for a business is sales. In our modern world, people look down on sales like it's something beneath them. That is a fatal error. Machiavelli noted that a prince should have no other object or thought than the art of war. In the realm of wealth, sales is your warfare. But whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, you are a salesperson the moment you try to convince a partner to join you, a founder to back you, or a client to pay you. Sales is the oxygen of your empire. Without it, you suffocate. The elite spend 80% of their time talking to the market. I recently spoke with a woman who spent 4 months perfecting a beautiful product. When I asked how many customers she'd spoken to, the answer was 0. She was building in a vacuum, and she didn't know if there was a market, what they'd pay, or even if they cared. Think about how Larry Ellison built Oracle. He didn't just build software, he built one of the most aggressive, numbers-driven sales cultures in history. He understood that a good enough product with a world-class sales force will always defeat a perfect product that no one knows how to sell. Sales is just problem-solving for people who have a specific pain. If you identify the need, the sale is easy. But you have to be systematic. Track your daily outreach with mathematical precision. If you send 100 messages and get 1 customer, you don't complain about the 99 rejections. You figure out how to send 1,000 messages. Rejection isn't a personal insult. It's data. It tells you how to sharpen your language and improve your tools. Take a moment to reflect on your current operation. Are you actually building a system that can scale? Or are you just working yourself into an early grave because you refuse to let go of the small stuff? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Share a reflection in the comments about one task you are currently bottlenecking and why you've been afraid to hand it off to someone else. Now, while building these systems and mastering sales is essential, there is a hidden layer to this game that most people completely miss. It's the digital fortress you must build before the world even knows your name. If you don't control the way the world perceives you, someone else will. In the age of information, your reputation is your most fortified castle. Machiavelli observed that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. In the modern world, that appearance is your online presence. Before a client shakes your hand or an investor signs a check, they will search for your name. If they find nothing, you are a ghost. If they find a mess, you are a liability. You must build a grand front that commands respect instantly. Now, this starts with something as foundational as your domain name. Most people settle for long, clunky URLs because the prime real estate is taken. This is like a prince building his capital in a swamp because the hilltops were occupied. You don't settle. You find a way to look legitimate from the first click. Using an extension like .online gives you that clean, professional edge when the .com world is overcrowded. And it's a small, strategic move that signals to the world that you are a serious player. But a castle is empty without a court. Habit 6 is about starting with people, not products. The common man tries to sell an idea. The elite man builds a network of power. When you look for a co-founder or a partner, do not look for a mirror image of your skills. Look for a mirror image of your values. Skills can be bought or taught, but character is forged in the fire. Out of the 13 companies I've started, the 9 that had co-founders were the most successful. I would rather own 50% of a winning empire than 100% of a failure. You need to build your network long before you actually need it. Go to the meetups, engage in the digital forums, and connect with those who are already where you want to be. Look at how the PayPal mafia, men like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Reid Hoffman, operated. So they didn't just build a payment processor, they built a network of high-functioning individuals who shared a specific, aggressive worldview. When they sold the company, they didn't scatter. They used their collective power and shared intelligence to launch SpaceX, Tesla, Palantir, and LinkedIn. They understood that the who is always more important than the what. You should also be seeking mentors, but not in the way most beggars do. Don't ask a high performer to be your mentor and waste their time. Instead, study their content. Most of us put our best secrets out for free. If you must reach out, ask one specific, high-value question. Give them the opportunity to help you once. If you provide value back, the relationship grows naturally. One of the most dangerous traps for an ambitious man is the lure of easy capital. Shows like Shark Tank have brainwashed people into thinking they need an investor to begin. As this is a slave mindset, money does not fix a weak idea, and taking money from the wrong people is like inviting a Trojan horse into your city. They will take your equity, which is your freedom, and force their objectives upon you. You should bootstrap for as long as humanly possible. Prove there is a demand by selling the dream before the product even exists. Consider how Tesla operated. Elon Musk didn't wait until he had 100,000 cars in a lot to start selling. But he took pre-orders years in advance. He used the customer's money to build the company. This is the ultimate power move. If you can prove people want what you have by making them pay for it up front, you don't need to beg for investment. You only take outside capital when you know exactly how to multiply it. If you can turn $1 into 3, then, and only then, does it make sense to trade equity for speed. Otherwise, you are just selling your throne before you've even sat on it. Now, before we move into the final phase of building your state, I want to hear about your own network. We've all had that one person who opened a door or gave us a piece of advice that changed everything. Comment a brief story about a strategic alliance or a mentor figure who helped you level up. How did that connection happen? Now, as you begin to gather your resources and your allies, you will be bombarded with advice. Most of it is poison. And if you don't learn how to filter the noise from the signal, you will be led astray by theorists who have never bled in the trenches. The final phase of your ascent involves a ruthless filtering of the information you consume. Machiavelli famously noted that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. This applies to your mentors just as much as your employees. In the world of wealth, advice is only as good as its source, and most of what you hear is noise. You must distinguish between the practitioners and the theorists. A theorist is like a man explaining the mechanics of a sword while never having stood on a battlefield. I despise consultants for this very reason. They speak of growth and pivots without ever having felt the weight of a payroll or the sting of a failing product. You need to listen to the practitioners, the ones currently in the trenches. If you want to master content, ask someone who commands millions of views daily. If you want to turn a company around, find someone who has actually saved a sinking ship. Theory is a luxury of the comfortable. Practitioners deal in reality, where everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. One of the most profound levers of power is building around a purpose that transcends the mere pursuit of coin. Money is fickle. It can be lost to a market crash or a bad trade. But a purpose creates a state religion for your business, a reason for your people to stay loyal when the treasury is low. I once built a comic book business in China simply because I thought it would be a lucrative, cool project. It failed because I wasn't passionate about the problem. Contrast that with my mission today. I left an education system at 15 that I felt was designed to produce obedient workers rather than leaders. That fire has fueled me for years. When your purpose is to fix a fundamental flaw in the world, you become unstoppable. People don't just buy your product, they join your crusade. And they want to see you win because your victory is a victory for their values. This is how you align your business with your personal code, ensuring you never have to take the shortcuts that keep lesser men awake at night. Before we discuss how to build your internal circle, I want to lock in this concept of the long game. Success is reserved for those who can see past the next paycheck. Comment the word loyalty below to affirm that you are building something that lasts. Well, not just something that pays. Building an army of supporters is the modern equivalent of Machiavelli's citizen militia. In an era where AI can replicate almost any skill, community is the only moat that big corporations cannot easily cross. The giants are too slow and too impersonal to build genuine connection. You, however, can build a militia of early supporters using tools like Discord or Slack. Don't just take from them, give. Share your resources, your insights, and your contacts without immediately asking for a return. This isn't a trick, it's the strategic cultivation of a tribe. Look at how LEGO survived its darkest years by listening to its militia of fans. The community was building Star Wars models long before LEGO secured the trademark. By letting the fans shape the product, they turned a plastic brick company into a global powerhouse. You must do the same. Listen to your community and let them show you where the market is going. Finally, you must hire for the heart, not just for the resume. Skills are a commodity that can be bought on any street corner, but passion and loyalty are the rarest currencies in the world. When I started my current platform, I worked with a woman named Talia. She wasn't an expert in the field at first. She spent her days staring at a wall in a merchandising firm, but she had heart. She had seen her father discarded by a company after 20 years of service, and then she felt the mission to help people find their own purpose. Because she believed in the cause, she outworked everyone and became world-class. You need lieutenants who are character-driven. Ask them what they would do with $10 million. If the answer is purely selfish, you know they will leave the moment a higher bidder appears. Look for loyalty and promote it from within. There's a book called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene that many use to keep their subordinates small so they stay dependent. That is a loser's strategy. A true leader promotes his best people. He makes them owners. In my organization, everyone eventually gets equity because I cannot tell the world to own their own lives while my own team owns nothing. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. If your culture is built on lifting each other up and staying true to the rhetoric, the skills will follow naturally. This is the blueprint for a legacy that outlives the man who built it. If you've found value in this deep dive into the mechanics of wealth and power, hit that subscribe button right now. Join this growing community of high performers who are done with the average life and are ready to claim their seat at the table. We are building something exclusive here, and the next step of your journey starts with the people you choose to walk with.